On today's episode of Watch Time, we'll be talking with Eric Richardson, the Growth Marketing Manager at Qventus, and we'll be talking about demand generation and what you need to know in order to create an effective demand generation strategy right after this. Welcome back to Watch Time, everybody. We're here with Eric Richardson, the Growth Marketing Manager at Qventus. Thanks for joining us, Eric.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm excited to talk about this topic today. This demand generation is a hot topic, in my opinion, and I know we come across this a lot with our clients, and I feel like there's a lot of questions around it, so I'm excited to get your input and your expertise on this topic. Before we do that, though, why don't you give us a little bit of background about yourself and how you even got into, working in marketing and things like that?
Yeah, of course. So I've been in B2B digital marketing for the last 6 years. Straight out of college, my first job was for a tech company. I was first in the data center services space, then cybersecurity for a bit, and now I'm in health tech. So a lot of, larger B2B complex sales cycles kind of is where I've found my home. Wasn't what I intended to get into. I just kind of fell into it. I was working on a master's in business analytics at Case Western, and one of my professors connected me with the CMO at the company I was at, the company I started working for, Park Place Technologies, and I started as an intern there, and then just really enjoyed what I was doing and who I was doing it with, and just kind of went full-time after graduation, and that's kind of how I got here.
It's great. It's great. I mean, it's great that I feel like with that story, and I think this is with so many different industries, you think you want to go into one thing, and then you find out there's this whole bigger world.
Yeah.
And that's Kathy Taylor has been on here before. We've talked about that, with her writing, where she wanted to be an author, or she wanted to be a writer, and she got into trade publication. So you just never know, what's out there. Yeah,
I knew I wanted to do marketing. My undergrad was marketing degree. I did try engineering for a bit, and I was like, no, I don't want that. I want more creative. I want more human-based rather than math-based. But I did like numbers, which is why I went into analytics part of it. So I feel like I've combined the creative aspect with the digital analytics aspect, and that's kind of, how I found my niche.
That's really a superpower too. I feel like that analytics side of things, because I feel like a lot of people will create marketing content, but then they don't know how to read how effective that is. So having that background and having that number-based knowledge, I feel like that allows you to create more effective content.
Yeah, it helps. And it also helps create content because I can pull customer data or find a story out of all the numbers that we get from, our product analytics or our customer usage. You can really more easily put together compelling case studies and things if you can understand what the numbers are showing you.
Yeah. Well, I guess pivoting from looking at analytics, let's talk a little bit about demand generation. And before we dive into these questions that you and I were talking about, why don't we just talk, for anybody that's watching or listening, what is demand generation?
Yeah, demand generation is, as simple as it sounds, it's creating a demand or an interest in your product or service. So it covers a broad spectrum of initial brand awareness, where you're trying to get someone to understand who your company is, or even before that, understand what problems you solve and how they can be solved. I think a lot of people just start talking about their company, but don't look at their audience and say, hey, you're probably facing this problem. Here are 3 ways to solve it. Here's why we're the best way to solve it, and here's why my company is the best at that way. There's layers of information you want to communicate. But yeah, at the core, it's raising awareness of your brand and the problems you solve. And then it's also goes on to capturing that demand. So once someone's aware and interested, you want to be able to continue marketing to them through various channels and kind of drive that awareness into an action, whether that's a conversion on a web form, whether it's a webinar, whether it's talking to your sales team, whatever action you desire as a useful conversion, you want to drive them to that state after you generate that initial awareness.
Interesting. Yeah, I think what's great about that is when we meet with a lot of our clients, whether it be a prospect or whether it be a client that we work with actively, I feel like the biggest obstacle, especially with smaller businesses that they're trying to overcome, is they don't realize their unique value proposition. And I feel like what you're talking about at that level, it explains why it's so important to get very clear on what pain points you solve and what it is you do and what makes you different and unique from your competition. And I think on a smaller business level, they don't all think that way. They think this is what I do. I deliver X service and that's what it is. And I like that, this is a broader, picture of that, doing what is your unique value proposition, but also being able to, create awareness around that, you're talking about. So it's all that content that goes into it, right?
Yeah, it definitely is a lot about creating that awareness. I think that's the biggest thing is, figure out your unique value prop and really just hit home on that and explain why that matters. Don't just explain what you do, but explain why what you do helps solve problems your audience is facing.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And just for everyone that's watching or listening, and correct me if you think I'm wrong on this, I just feel like a great example, if you're getting a little lost, is like, let's say you're an electrician and you're just like, we do electrical work. But really what you do is if you do specialize in service calls, for example, like you go when people have outages, really what the pain point you're serving is people that have outages, you're getting there to get them back up and running so they're not without power.
Yeah, exactly. And even, if you were an electrician saying, hey, like you might need an inspection every few years for this reason, they might not think about that kind of stuff. So like a lot of people, I think, assume that their audience like is actively trying to solve these problems or knows about these problems. That's not always the case.
So I guess going from there, talking more about demand generation, can you talk a little bit about like what makes a successful demand generation program?
Yeah, I think there's kind of a lot of factors that go into a successful program, and it depends a lot on industry and your audience and things like that. But in general, I think a successful demand gen program is about reaching your audience like where they are. So having a deep understanding of what channels they view, who they trust in the industry, like different publications or different partners, things like that, and then where they're going to get content. Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on YouTube? Are they on TikTok? Like figuring out that and then creating content for those channels, I think is like the foundational approach to demand generation. You really need to have a successful program. You need to have a story, and you need to know how to get that story to the people you're talking to. Mm-hmm. So once you identify channels and you identify like an overarching customer journey, I'd say is probably like the foundation you need to be successful.
I just want to break for a second on this and just ask you, this isn't on demand generation, but I just wanted to kind of tie this into some of the other stuff that we've talked about on the podcast. This is something that you're doing after you've already identified who, your buyers' personas are, your I guess your customer avatars. When you figure out who they are you then developing this like demand generation program around the specific customer, and then like that story is going to be specific to them. So like if say you have 3 avatars, like these are the 3 customers bases that we serve, would there be a different demand generation program for each one?
Yeah, if you have different personas or avatars, and that they each have different needs or different pain points or different like ways they would enter conversations with you, you'd want to create content that speaks to that specifically. And you'd also want to do that like if you're familiar with like the demand generation funnel of like awareness, interest, intent, and like conversion. Like you want to create content across the whole journey of they know nothing about us. Okay, great. Now they know about us, and we know they know about us. Let's serve them content around maybe like white paper or something that's like more actionable. Like, hey, if you know this is a problem, here's some ways you could solve it. And then if they engage with that content, then they engage with that content, and you can say, okay, great. Now let's talk to an expert who can help you solve that. So you kind of want to guide them along the journey from awareness to like conversion.
Can you talk a little bit about just for people that are maybe watching or listening, if they're not aware, because I know like there's in marketing you have the customer journey, you do it, you have the marketing funnel. This sounds like it's kind of the same with a couple little tweaks. Can you talk just a little bit about each stage of the funnel for demand generation and what each one of those stages means? Yeah,
so the top of the funnel is the awareness stage, and that's really the broadest audience. You're reaching the biggest number of people, and it's just trying to, like I said before, raise awareness of your company, but also the problems you solve and why solving those problems is important. Mm-hmm. Then the next stage of the funnel is like interest or intent. So once you've identified, and it's not always easy to identify, but once you identify that somebody or some group of people are like interested or aware, of what you're selling, then the next step would be to get them interested in you as a solution, that's where it's going to be more like educational content or how-to content guides of like, hey, here's how you can solve these problems. You don't necessarily like mention yourself or say, I can solve these for you, but you just say, here's like an outline of how you might go about solving the problems you're now aware of. And then after the interest stage, that's where it's more into like intent. So now they've engaged with your educational content. Say they download a white paper, gave you their email address. So you know that they're looking at ways to solve these problems now, and that's where you kind of go, okay, now here's why our way is the best way, and here's how we're the best at it. So that's kind of more maybe a case study or a customer story video, something like that, or something that's more just about why me at that point. It's like you know about the problem, you're looking at ways to solve it, and here's why I'm the best way.
Okay. So I want to circle back to our electrician, I guess, example, because just thinking about what you said before. So like when you think about this awareness, so like maybe maybe not necessarily a problem, but like let's use your example of having to get like a inspection done. So maybe they're aware of the fact that they start to become aware of this company because they're aware of a problem. They know that there's something going on, that they might need this inspection done. So when they get to that intent piece, after they become aware of the company, what maybe the educational content they would then serve up would be like maybe a how-to on, how to do this inspection or how this inspection is done and what could happen if you don't do it. So kind of educating them on the do's and don'ts. Like you need to have a professional come out and do it, or you can do it on your own and then submit your findings. So you're kind of like maybe giving them something that like would, I guess, make them a more informed buyer.
Yeah, exactly. So it might be like here's what you can expect from an electrical inspection, and the 5 lists of things that are typically included. Or it's like here's how to check your own breakers or whatever the thing is, but like a little bit of how-to guide. And typically with those, it's like you can do it yourself, and here's a way to do it yourself. But then you end that piece with like you probably want to trust the experts, like just because you give them the tools to like learn for themselves, but then you still kind of guide them in the way you want them to go.
So then after that I guess what's that interest or that's intent, correct?
Yeah, that would be like the interest and intent. Yeah.
And then the next thing would be like you said, so now they've kind of gotten that served up where it's like, here's why you should trust the expert. Oh, by the way, you go a step further. Here's a case study of somebody that we helped out and why it was beneficial that we helped them. And here's somebody that we didn't help out and why you shouldn't. Is that kind of like the idea?
Yeah, and even with the case study, it's like if you're, in this example, if your 5 things to look for during an inspection, if that's like your educational content, then your case study content should reference those 5 things. Because even if it's not like directly saying, in this guide, you might have seen this, but that person read the guide, so now they're going to be looking for those 5 things. So if you can just check those boxes for them, they'll be like, oh, great, this person checks all the boxes that the other piece of content was talking about.
Okay, and then I guess the goal from there, then now that they've kind of seen all this, the next step in the process is trying to make that sale, get them to go ahead and work with you or inquire about your services.
Yeah, that's where you'd want to serve them to like a web form or contact sales, some sort of like conversion action that you deem important to your business.
Perfect. Okay, yeah, I appreciate you kind of working with me on that. I just wanted to break it down for if somebody's watching, they're listening, and they're like, okay, they're at the point of the funnel, but I know there's so much confusion, especially when we talk with clients or prospects around the funnel and marketing funnels. So I appreciate you breaking that down and kind of walking through it.
Yeah, of course. And the funnel is always going to be different for different industries or different, so it's not like one uniform thing you always must follow, but it's just like a template to help you understand your customers and how they would go through a buying cycle, which when you're talking about like enterprise or B2B customers, it's so complex with so many people in it. It's like very important to figure out the usual flow, but you also can't be pigeonholed into like that's the only way it can happen. You have to allow for like flexibility or different users doing different things.
Yeah, I guess that like with that, like somebody could become aware, and then they could of that business, and then they start looking at that content. Then maybe they do decide to do the inspection themselves this year, and then next year they're like, I don't have the time for that, and then they could come back to that company. Is that kind of like what you're saying? Is like it may not be like these 4 steps, but it could be like, okay, we become aware, we find this content, we do the inspection ourselves this year, and then next year we're like, you know what, I don't have time to do this, I should hire a professional, and then they might come back to that company because
they have a positive perception of you, you helped them in the past without getting anything in return. It's just building a relationship, I think, is also an important component of demand generation. And I think to your point, that's like a really important point, is that it's not immediate. It's not like they're going to see your ad one day, the next day they're going to see your content piece, and they're going to download it. Like, it's really hard to track someone through the full journey. Like, this is all ideal state. What I'm saying is, track them, see them watch this, see them download this. That's hard to do, and it also can take a lot of time, or someone might come into a different stage of the funnel. Like, if someone's already aware of they need an inspection, they're not going to need or benefit from the awareness content as much, but like it's hard to know where somebody is in the journey at all times.
So it's not linear, and you can enter in at any time. So I guess the big thing I wanted to when I was trying to get you to explain this is just understand that it's not that like you said, it's not the end all be all. Like, you really need to just like look at this, create the content, and then understand that people can come in, enter at any time, leave at any time, and they're going to find you their own way. Yeah,
exactly. But having that framework and going through the exercise internally to figure out what stage you think makes sense is very important.
Do you use each stage to help you develop what types of content you need? Like, is that kind of like
when I look at the funnel, I would try to associate certain messaging goals to each stage of the funnel, and also certain channels. A lot of channels can be different, like cross funnel. Like you can use LinkedIn ads for awareness and for like intent. You can use the same channel for different things, but I do try to say like which channel am I going to use during the awareness stage, because there are some like maybe industry publications or podcasts, for example, are very much awareness generating tool. You're not going to use a podcast to like convert someone on your website very often. It's more about awareness.
I know.
Yeah. So I think mapping messaging goals, and then also just like having an outline of what channels you might use for that is a super helpful way to start putting together your marketing material.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I guess kind of, I know you've talked a lot about, B2B being like your background. And we talked, a lot of these things you're talking about, like the journey can be more complex for B2B. But why don't we talk a little bit about industries? What industries or products can really benefit from a demand generation strategy?
Yeah, I feel like, at least from my experience, it is more longer sales cycles or larger deals or bigger, I guess, buying teams that can benefit from it the most, because demand generation is about like creating awareness and following through that entire journey. If you have a complex journey to go through, that's where it's going to be most beneficial, because it's also the situation where like the problems aren't going to be as immediately evident of how to solve. I think when you're talking about like, complex IT issues, you're talking about even like marketing tech that gets marketed to me, it's very much like these are hard problems to solve. There's a lot of ways to do it, and it's one piece of a very complex ecosystem. So I think that's those kind of situations where demand generation is most impactful, because you can help guide someone along what is probably a pretty long and pretty complex journey for them. Versus like an electrician, I don't think would really probably look at demand gen through this same lens. I mean, it's all just marketing tactics either way, but an electrician probably wouldn't like need to think as much about spending time creating awareness by doing podcasts and things, or because it's not as complex, or it's not like as, I guess, big of a solution set either. If you need an electrician, you need an electrician. It's not like you can solve the same problem 10 different ways. It's
not the same as I feel like our services as like a video production company are a great, I guess, way to look at demand generation, because for us, similar to like you're saying, like we have a longer sales cycle, we have a more complex solution. Video may not be the only solution to somebody's problem because it's a piece of content. They may need video with it, like as part of their marketing, but they could as easily go like, instead of doing something video related, like a video ad or something like that, they might be able to do a pay-per-click, maybe something like Google positioning or something of that nature. So I feel like we're like one option to help solve a problem. So it's like educating them on why is this option a good option and why it would apply to them.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example, because their problem might be like, oh man, I need to get my company story out there more. And then that's not, I need a video, it's I need to get the story out. But you can come in and say, hey, you can use a video to get your story out. So you can like, help meet them where they are and just help guide them along that journey.
I guess like going from there, just for somebody that maybe is interested in trying to create, looking at the funnel, create some of this content and put together a demand generation strategy, what should they do to measure their strategy and see how effective it is? Yeah, I think talking about reporting and measuring often opens up a big can of worms, because it's not ever as easy as you want it to be. Not everyone, but a lot of people think like with digital marketing, you have all these metrics, clicks, impressions, click-through rates. So like you should be able to optimize to those things, but also, there's a lot of stuff you don't know about the journey. So like things like social media, you don't get like, can't associate impressions to a specific person. So you don't know if this person is viewing your content or not. You don't know what else they're researching. So there's a lot of like gaps in like the dark funnel that exist. So I will say, just a caution, if you're trying to report this stuff, don't expect to get to like a one-to-one attribution of, hey, this activity generates this amount of leads on its own. Because if you do that, you're going to just really miss a lot of the big picture of what happens behind the scenes. Yeah. But in general, you want to measure the conversions you can measure from like the channels you can measure them from. So like PPC or organic search, you can like measure how many conversions come that way. Yeah. So that's like the low funnel measurement. But then to try to get measurement from like high funnel tactics, it really is, I think, just about measuring the performance of that specific tactic in the context of like cost and reach. So it's not like, I would like this podcast example, going back to that, I wouldn't say like for the podcast you should try to even say how many leads did my podcast generate or how many like sales did my podcast influence. So you're not going to get there. It's too hard. There's too much anonymous viewers. You're going to like undersell the value if you try to like report that close. But you can say, how has my podcast metrics changed over time? Like how many views am I getting? Where are those views coming from? What if you have access to this, what titles are viewing it, or what like pages are they viewing it on? So you start to try to get a picture of like, am I reaching my audience, and am I reaching them more the more I do? Is kind of like where I think you need to start with reporting. That's interesting, because I do feel like that is something that I don't know. I feel like with marketing, when you talk with, especially like with C-level executives, or you're talking with a business owner, maybe that's not involved in the marketing, maybe they have a marketing person or they have a marketing team. I do feel like, because there's a lot you can track, but to your point, there's a lot you can't track. So it's always so hard for these companies to understand how effective the marketing, department or the marketing work that they're putting in is being, like how this is being done. So I find it interesting that it's, I don't know, I feel like it's not like sales. You can send a salesperson, they reach out, they can go through so many leads and you can find out like what their rate is. But I do feel like with marketing, the awareness level of content that you're talking about, like, yeah, you can measure to see how it's, how much better it's performing. But there's so many people that I know I've met that they go, well, I saw you on the podcast, or I saw your video, or I saw your behind the scenes photo, or something like that. Like, and that's like, but I had no idea that they even were watching. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and if you were like trying to allocate your marketing budget toward things that are like showing results, you probably would reduce the budget on those awareness things because you can't tie it to revenue. But if you do that, you get like a bigger decrease in overall conversions if you cut out high level stuff. There's one example of the previous company I was at. We invested a lot in like pay-per-click advertising, and we saw like pretty low conversions from that. So we tried an experiment where for a few months we like cut back pretty much everything except brand keywords, but cut back all the intent-based PPC. And you saw the drop in traffic that you'd expect. You saw the drop in like impressions, obviously, but we saw like a very big drop in web leads that were attributed to organic search. And the reason for that is because the hypothesis, I guess, is that people would see a ad, go to our site, not convert because they weren't ready yet, do more research, and then come back, search organically, and convert. So like pay-per-click had a very big role in a lot of these conversions, but that role was just not evident because they weren't converting directly after that PPC click, so you didn't like track it back to that channel.
Yeah.
So you saw like a major drop in organic conversions after reducing PPC spend, which you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm always fascinated by that's why I just feel like marketing for me is fascinating. And that's why during COVID, this happened where we were producing our podcasts, and I was producing like little short clips on like how to do DIY video, like whatever, just because it was COVID and I had a bunch of time on my hands, and I was like, I'm going to do a video on, how can you create more effective videos like DIY. So it's like everything from production to, putting a script together or whatever that may be, and then actually like uploading it to social media and what aspect ratio, if it should be vertical, depending on the, or horizontal at the time, because there wasn't as much vertical video. And what was crazy was I was putting these things out. I'd gotten some decent traffic. It wasn't anything like crazy, but I was like, okay, well, there's some people watching it. And then I ended up getting a call from some company, and their marketing person like reached out to me and was just like, yeah, I wanted to talk to you about consulting with our team because we have to go and do more things virtually because of COVID. So we've been using your videos to like coach our team on like how to create, like content so they can like reach our target market.
Awesome.
And I was just like, had no idea. I was like, I don't even know if these things are effective. I'm like, but I have time on my hands. I see like people are watching it. So I'm like, I'll just keep putting it out there. But that's the thing that I feel like is so amazing about marketing.
Yeah, and I think that's also like we asked about reporting. Always just trying to use whatever tools you have in place to like track metrics is not always the best way to like report. I think getting clients to tell you how they learn about you, or like getting client feedback is the best way. So you can, on your web forms, maybe once they fill it out, you could put another like question. Thanks. How'd you hear about us? So it's like a very quick like, fill in the blank, like how'd you hear about us kind of thing. Or on sales calls, if someone comes in from a web lead, have your teach your sales team to ask them, by the way, how'd you hear about us? Like getting that organic feedback from the client or from like the prospective client is usually a lot more insightful than just trying to track like attribution digitally or track like through your platforms, because the platforms show one thing, but when you hear them talk about it, you really understand like, oh wow, this is what worked. This is how they heard about us.
Do you feel like with that, because I feel like I've run into this, is it good to get that information up front versus, because I know some people try and get it at the end, like, okay, we're all done, like, hey, can you tell us, like when they're doing the wrap up and like, what worked, what didn't work, like how, can you recommend us to people? And there's usually like a, how did you come to find us type deal, like now that like, and how did that, I guess, correlate to working with us? Do you find that like it's better to ask that question up front, because at the end, say it's a longer, cycle to get work done. For us, sometimes it's like 2-3 months. Like, I feel like, are they forgetting how they actually came to find you at that point versus like right off the bat?
Yeah, I think it's better up front. Even up front, people might not remember. I mean, like, think about how many ads you see every day that you don't even like recognize you see, but then when you see the one you do recognize, you already like subconsciously know that brand. So like there's even self-reported attribution is like not always 100% accurate. But yeah, I think the sooner you can ask them after they do a conversion action, the better, but you don't want to like, make it weird for them. So you want to like try to do it organically as possible.
Yeah.
So, which is why I think having like whoever they speak with once they convert, just say, by the way, how'd you hear about us? Make it like very light, low touch, and just kind of capture those notes somewhere.
Yeah.
That's probably my preferred way. And then I think on web forms specifically, I've seen some companies do this, and I've done it before, where you just put like, how'd you hear about us, with like an open text field, and don't make it required. They don't need to fill it out, but you'd be surprised. People do fill it out pretty often, and that is like a good barometer for like what they were thinking at the time they did the conversion.
Yeah. That's good advice. So that's something that if you're already using forms in your business, that's something you could easily add to the form, or to your point, like once you have somebody convert, you can easily make that part of your onboarding process.
Yeah, just build it into whatever next steps you already do.
So I know we wanted to talk a little bit about how does one go about implementing demand generation strategy. So let's talk a little bit about that. But I also, want to look at it from the lens of actionable, advice, right? So like if somebody's watching right now, listening right now, and say they're a small business owner, maybe they're starting to like be on the verge of a middle market company, maybe $10 million to $20 million, maybe they have one marketing person on staff. Like, what advice would you give them in terms of, doing something with demand generation? Like, how should they get started with it? Like, if you could get, how would you tell them this is how you should get started, and this is how you can implement something to start doing something with it? Yeah,
I would say to start, really just know your audience and know your story. Like, until you have your value prop figured out, until you know exactly who you want to reach, it's not worth trying to invest a lot in these tactics, because you might not have the right people. So like figure that part out first and really be confident that you know who you're trying to reach. But then as far as like implementing different tactics or different channels, I would say start with the brand awareness side of things first. I know it's tempting to try to like do low funnel tactics first, like, PPC, or I want to just get conversions. But if no one like knows your brand or trusts your brand already, it's a lot harder to get those conversions. So you'll probably see a very, very like high cost per lead if you just only invest in like low funnel tactics without having kind of the awareness and the interest and the education ahead of it. So I'd say start through the lens of, I want to educate my audience. If that's your goal right away, to educate people, you're on the right track, because then you can just think, what would my audience want to know? What kind of content should I create? And you can start building that like positive relationship to your brand, which goes a lot further than just like clicking on a Google ad and then converting. Like I think people often rush to see conversions, and they often don't have the patience for the time it takes to really build awareness and educate your audience. So they kind of default to doing the ones that are more immediate.
That makes sense. Would you say that, one thing to think about, because I've had people reach out to me and they want to do something like, I'm going to run ads. And then I go to like look. I always, whenever a client reaches out to us, I always go to their social media, their website. I look at what they have. I take stock of it. And some of these people that have reached out to us and want to do ads, like video ads, I'll go to their social media and they don't even have an account, or they have an account. They have like one post. And I feel like, does that, in your mind as a marketer, like, are you looking at that as when somebody lands there, there's no credibility because there's nothing to back? Like, I feel like if they land there and there's like all this educational content, like, does that hurt their credibility to have like one post or 5 posts already?
I think it does. Yeah. I mean, if there's been a lot of times where I'll get either email outreach or an advertising or something like that from a company, I will go to their socials or I'll go to their website and see like, what do you have? What do you do? What do you create? And if there's nothing there, it does kind of say like, okay, like, then what is this ad for? Like, if you're gonna drive somebody to somewhere with an ad, you need to have a pretty strong offering, or a strong like, I don't know, something strong once they're there. Because if you just have an ad that goes to a landing page and nothing else, like, they're not gonna have a positive experience. They're just gonna be like, okay, you serve me an ad, but you don't really have anything to offer me. And you got to think about it like a lot of people think about it with they want the client to like take an action for them, right? I want you to convert for me, for my business. That's, I think, a backward way of looking at it. You got to look at like, what can I offer people I'm interested in, so that they trust me, so that they start to know me, and then they want to work with me. That's like a much, I think, better approach. It's definitely a longer approach. Yeah. It's like you won't see immediate results that way, and it will take time to build that. Yeah. But you'll have a much stronger brand and a much stronger foundation once that is built.
I feel like this goes back to more like I don't know. It reminds me of networking, because that's really like what it reminds me of. Like, when you go out networking, you're not supposed to go up to somebody and just say, I want work from you. Like, really what you're supposed to do is network with people, meet with them, offer them, advice, give them, if you can educate them on your topic, but also you're trying to help them connect them to people in your network. And I feel like it's the same thing with, this awareness level content, this educational content. You're trying to give something, and in return, you hope that one day those people, those people are going to then either buy from you, or maybe they're going to refer somebody else to you because they're not the right fit, but they know someone who is.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to look at it. Yeah, it's just like network. You don't want to come on and say, "Hi, please buy from me." Like that's not going to work.
Yeah, for sure. I guess I have one more question too, and this may be a unicorn question, but I just want to get your opinion on it, and we can break this up if we have to. But what if somebody's watching, listening, and they want to start creating some awareness level content? Maybe something educational, something that's just driving brand awareness. Like, what would be the easiest form of content that they could be putting out that maybe would be effective for them? And if it's not one thing, that's where I think it's a unicorn. What are maybe like one or two things that you think like, hey, maybe you should start doing this if you're a brand looking to do that?
Yeah, that's a hard one. So many factors that go into like what's the easiest to create is also just some people have different skill sets, create things differently.
Yeah.
But
I guess bang for buck, like what is the most effective that you find?
Yeah.
So maybe not easiest to create, but like what thing like have you seen deliver a better return?
I think authentically telling your story is probably just like the overall guidance. I think video is a good one for that just because it puts a face to you right away and it can be pretty low cost. Like there's a low cost way to do videos, also obviously high cost ways, but there's like, it's a low barrier to entry, even just like a selfie on LinkedIn, like, hi, this is Eric, I'm talking about my business, I'm passionate about this. If you just like start telling your story in whatever like way that looks like, that's where I would start. I think I think like educational pieces like white papers or like how-to guides are also could be pretty easy if you already because in theory you know how to do that pretty well if you're a business. So if you could just like write about what you know how to do and how you apply that to clients, that's a pretty easy place to start. I think the tricky part then is like if you're just starting, you don't really have a channel that's going to get that thing out there. So that's where I think partnering with different publications in your industry can be really helpful. That's going to have some cost to it. But if you can say, hey, like I wrote this great white paper, now industry publication, can you please help me sponsor this? Put it in your newsletter and like put it on your website and help generate leads from that. I think that's like typically if you don't have your own following, that's a good way to get started and get your name out there more. That's
interesting. And I do think like it kind of reminds me of like if somebody's watching, there's somebody that I follow on LinkedIn that does that kind of not selfie style, but like he like sets up his camera and he does like a Tip Tuesday type thing. And like I love it. Like it's at his table. It feels very like inviting and it's not like super edited. It's just him kind of going through and I see it go out every Tuesday. He's got decent, reactions to it. I feel like that's something simple, like you're saying, it's simple enough that you're the subject matter expert. You can be giving those tips out, and I feel like Tip Tuesday is probably used by a ton of people.
Yeah,
but
that's a great one too because it's low effort, but it's also repeatable. And that's another thing is like if you create one stellar piece of content, but it took you 2 months to create, and now you don't have anything else to create, like that's going to be hard to build momentum because the first few things you put out there, if you don't have a big following, are probably going to like go flat. They're not going to get a lot of people because it's the consistency that over time builds your brand. So if you're posting on social media, don't get discouraged after 2 months if nothing's happening yet. Like it takes a lot of time to really get momentum. I mean, that's why people I think quickly say this didn't work. Let's try something else. Like no, it didn't work yet. You got to keep trying it, and especially on social media, the consistency of posting is the most important factor.
Well, and I want to add to that too. Just like I know we've talked about this on the podcast, is like repurposing content. So if you post it this month, you can post it again next month because everyone probably didn't see it.
Yeah.
And then also like I think like the Tip Tuesday thing, like that's something that if you like pull the tips that you gave, like you could easily turn that into a graphic. You could like just do a post. Like I feel like there's so many ways people aren't repurposing content that they could be more effective. Like you're saying, like they could have more stuff all from like one or two things.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think like getting a message that's worth sharing and getting like the right message is much more difficult and much more time consuming than like sharing it in multiple channels. So once you have a message that you like think resonates well and that you like, share that in every way you possibly can share it.
That's great advice. I guess one last thing that I want to touch on before we're out of here on this is what are two takeaways that you really want people to walk away with from this episode? So like if everyone was watching and listening, what are the two things you want them to take with them after finishing?
Yeah, I would say the first one is that demand generation takes time. It's not like a flip a switch and suddenly you have a demand gen program. Like it will take a while to see results at first, and you got to start like looking for little wins and little growth, and over time it snowballs into a lot. Mm-hmm. But don't try something for 3 months and then say, well, this isn't working, and pivot completely because then you just lost like all your momentum. Mm-hmm. That's the first one. The second one I would say is just it's about educating your audience. I mean, you should know what your audience wants to hear if you're trying to like sell to them anyway. So just work on providing content that's useful to them and don't make it about yourself. So you mentioned gating in the beginning. I think like don't gate content very often unless it's like very high cost to create and very like no one else can get that in-house research, stuff like that maybe. But in general, make it easy for people to see your content and make it easy for them to interact with you, even if that means sacrificing some of the metrics or some of the tracking that you get from it. It's more important to build that relationship than it is to like measure every piece of content at exhaustion.
Do you feel, I just have a follow-up to that because just talking about the gating content, do you feel like in 2024 that versus like say, I don't know, like 2010, right? So like well, let's even go 2014. So we're talking about a 10-year difference, right? Do you feel that the price of asking for an email, like the content has gone up versus like, I feel like in 2014, you feel like more people are willing to give email versus today, more people are like, do I really want that? You know what I mean? Like, is it more of like a bigger ask today than it was then?
Yeah, I think it is. So I think for like two main reasons come to mind. One is that there's just so much more content out there. So like if this guide requires me to give my email, I'm going to find a different guide. Like there's so much out there that I can get most information somewhere else. Unless it's like really valuable research that no one else has, maybe. But in general, I can find other stuff. And then the second thing is that there's so much email bloat. Everyone's inbox is overflowing. And if you subscribe to something, you have no idea how often they're going to email you, what they're going to do, who's going to be calling you the next day. So like it's not just giving you my email, it's knowing I'm going to have to like try to respond to phone calls if you call me, or knowing I'm going to have to get 20 things in my inbox every day and deal with that and unsubscribe at some point. Like it's just, I don't think there's as much trust that like what I get from getting my email is going to be worth it.
So really, I mean, just in your opinion, this is why I wanted to like follow up on this, because I feel like this is a big point that always comes up whenever I'm talking to someone about this. But from your perspective, it's just better to give them the content, because now you're adding value and then they can just look at it, and now you like you said earlier, you're kind of looked at it in a more positive way.
Yeah, I think so. Because I mean, having someone read your content is better than getting an email address. Like I think you lose a lot of people if you try to get email addresses on everything. And the biggest value your content can provide is if it's read and people know your message and learn about you.
It's great advice. Thanks for coming on, joining us today. If anybody that's watching, listening, if they want to connect with you or maybe ask you some questions or learn more about you and your background, where can they do that?
Yeah, LinkedIn's the best spot. I think you'll probably drop my handle in somewhere. Cool. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So look for the handle down in the comment section, or if you're on LinkedIn, Eric Richardson.
Yep.
Right. And connect with Eric and ask him some questions, or just say hi. So
yeah, please do.
Yeah. So go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say thanks for having me. I loved being on the podcast. It was fun.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. You provided so much value today. I mean, this is like a great episode. I'm really excited to push this out, and I hope everyone got a lot of value from it. So
yeah, me too.
Thanks for listening to Watch Time. We hope you guys enjoyed today's episode.
And remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes.
And if you want your question answered on our podcast, go to flexmediacle.com/watchtime.